Hello, and thanks for tuning in tonight to Answers for the Paranormal on a beautiful Friday night here on the East Coast of the United States, October the 28th, 2016. We are a mere 11 days away from the presidential election, and we're going to be getting into some topics tonight as we prepare everyone to get ready for selection 2016. My name is Bill Posey, and I'm your host. And we have a great show tonight. And at this time, I'd like to introduce my co-hosts from Horsham, PA. On the line with me is my regular partner, Joe Marodi. What's going on, Joe?
Hey, Bill. A lot's going on. Yeah, 11 days away, and there's no shortage of material to get to. This is something we could probably do in an hour or 2 hours every night. So, whenever we get these opportunities to talk about, particularly this election, it seems like that we have to go kind of rapid fire. But I mean, there's really no alternative to that. So we kind of get to everything that we can get to, and it's so far this is our third show. The first two were jam packed with information and some speculation on our part. So I don't think that tonight will be any different. If anything, it's probably going to be even more interesting given the special guest that we have tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. And with us from my living room, one room away, is our other co-host, and that's my wife, Susan Posey. How you doing tonight, hon?
Hey, everybody. I'm good.
Good. Glad to have you with us again this week. And as Joe mentioned, we have a special guest tonight to come and join us. And his name is Chris Krill, and Chris is a college student. And we'd like to get a different perspective on this election cycle that we're presently going through. And Chris is going to bring some stuff to the table tonight that is going to be quite mind-opening. I think that when you consider that both candidates are reaching out to younger voters to try and get their vote, what they have to say and what they are thinking about is of prime importance. So with that, I want to bring in Chris Krill. Welcome, Chris.
Thank you very much. Also, I want to thank Joe. I want to thank Sue, and also you, Bill, for giving me the opportunity to, tell you what's on my mind. And you're right, this election has been absolutely crazy, and I've been in the epicenter of the college world, and I've really seen the bias by the professors, and they teach opinion as fact, and these students just shake their heads. They shake their heads and say yes, 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 and And that's what I would love to talk about today. Talk about the brainwashing and the brainwashing of our youth. And is college really the place for knowledge?
Wow, that's so true.
That's a loaded question. And the very interesting thing about Christopher is that, number one, he's in his 20s. He's much younger than us. So his perspective on what is taking place within this election and in politics and this nation in general is something that we haven't had, Bill. We haven't been able to tap a younger mind to see, because they are the next generation. They are going to be the ones who are the leaders in the future, 5, 10, 15, 20 years from now. So I think Chris is going to bring a very interesting perspective, and knowing Christopher the way that I do, I don't want to get into too much from anecdotally, but I know that he is very different than the young people that I encounter, even within my daughter's friends, people that I come in contact with during work, and their children. Just being able to talk with younger people, he's very different, and it's going to be interesting to hear his perspective, especially someone who has attended 4 years of college, something I never did, So, I'm really looking forward to his views tonight. What he has to bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Joe, that makes us one. You, Susan, and myself. We're those voters that Hillary claims are the uneducated white voters who only want to vote for Trump because we don't know any better. So, with that in mind, I want to ask Chris. Chris, you bring up an interesting point when you say that it's brainwashing that's taking place on the college campuses today. And I just wanted to, get your perspective as far as why do you think it's so easy today for young people's minds to be molded to a certain viewpoint? I mean, we've all been given a brain. We all can reason. So why is it so prevalent on our campuses today that professors are able to mold thinking?
Well, before the professor part, it all comes down to pop culture and social media. Social media has absolutely transformed everything. I'm sure you guys know Facebook. Anyone can post any kind of a blog. They can say anything. For example, back when Trump proposed the Muslim ban, people were sharing posts that Trump said that all Muslims should have a badge, like in Nazi Germany. Never happened. Illegal immigration. Trump said, he said some are good people, but a lot of illegal immigrants are also criminals. They should not be here. But the media didn't take it as illegal immigrants. They took it as Mexican immigrants. So automatically saying that Trump was wrong. And that's what the college professors do. They'll name facts. Like my one professor, he brings in the New York Times. It's mandatory for us to read the New York Times. The New York Times is not a paper. It's not a news source. Their headline is the editorial. Okay, it's the opinion. Headlines should not be opinion pieces. So professors have power. They sit on their pedestal. Okay, they think they're right. And they tell the kids, like I said before, and they give excuses for Hillary. He says that the media has never covered the Hillary emails. I'm sorry. He says the media covered the Hillary emails too much to the class. That's not true. So going back to your question, why do they have power? Kids they have this socialist mentality. They accept socialism. And that's the big difference, socialism. These teachers are unions. My teachers just go on strike. They brainwash these kids into going on the streets and striking. And it's all about the big government and entitlements and diversity and racism. Racism is the big thing. They love to play the victim card. And as long as you play the victim card, there will not be any solutions because you're automatically making yourself different by playing the victim card.
You guys want to follow up with something for Chris, Susan, and Joe?
Yeah. Chris, now I heard you say, and so, whenever somebody says something and it kind of raises my antenna, I have to get a clarification because I don't, just because this is an internet-based radio show, I don't think that it's right to be able to just say anything that you want to say. So I want to get some clarification as to what you said about your professors bringing in the New York Times. Did you say that it's not a newspaper, it's not a source?
In my opinion, CNN's not a source. The New York Times is not a source. None of them are sources because every single source they have is biased. It's not based on facts, and it's taken out of context. And they're presenting that. We have to have a portfolio based on the New York Times. He tests us based on opinionated, factual information that the New York Times says they have, and he tests us on that. That's not right, because he's testing us on material that is flawed. And it's biased, and it's all for Hillary. It really is.
Oh, okay. I got you. That clears it up for me.
Okay. So,
Susan?
if you think the New York Times is a good source, I think you're crazy. It's pure bias. But they don't understand the bias because the bias is on their side, and they're fully accepted of it.
Now, I don't know if you're aware of this, Christopher. I would hope that your professor is aware of this, but in that scathing indictment that you just gave of the New York Times, and I can't say that I disagree with you, we must understand that the New York Times is our nation's record of history. You know what I'm saying by that?
And that's a scary thought, I think.
Well, I agree with you, but my point is that the power that newspapers like the New York Times and the Washington Post and CNN have is formidable. The problem is that what they are telling you, is it true? Is it factual? Or is it biased? Is it supposition? Can it be proven? So this goes back to my, Bill and Sue, when I asked you guys, I don't know if it was the first or second show, where do people get their information to base on who they're going to vote for? So, based on what we're talking about here is that we're going on a lot of faulty information, so we have to get to a point where we come to what do we know to be absolutely true? And, that's an area for discussion that I think that we have to have. What do we know to be true as far as what the candidates are saying? So this is something that can really muddy the waters. If someone is relying on certain sources for information, and I'm going to draw this out a little bit later when I talk about information that you find on the internet. So it's a very interesting observation. And let me ask you this, Chris, as well. Do any of your co-students in this professor's class feel the way that you do?
If they do, they never talk. They do not talk. I am the only one that defends anything. If he says something, I'll go on my feet and I'll talk, and he'll try to deflect the question. I mean, he's a very big, and I'm not just saying, there's a lot of big union people. Union people are all very liberal. They have this big union mentality where, if the other teacher isn't in the union, then you're evil. So they're kind of all in together, and they were all in for Bernie. Okay, they liked Bernie, but they knew that that's a phenomenon that I think is worthy of discussion. Why did Bernie connect? Why did a 75-year-old socialist, a hippie socialist, connect with all these youth people? Why did they like him so much? I know people who consider themselves anarchists, and people that I know very closely, and that is absolutely, if I even explained it to you, and I'll just tell you quickly what they think. They want Trump to win because they want Trump to implode the system and have total anarchy. And isn't that extreme? I'm not even kidding when I say that. They think America is based on white suppression by white privilege. And today I got in a little argument on Facebook I kind of wanted to tell you. I don't know if you guys saw in Hollywood, they broke Trump's star.
Yeah.
They got a hammer and they broke Trump's star in Hollywood, and it was on video. So this kid, he had the nerve, he posted a picture of a black man cleaning up the star, cleaning up the rocks. And he said, this sums it up. The black man cleaning up after a white man's mess. Because the white guy broke the star. And I was saying, do you get what I'm saying? That the black man was cleaning up after the white man. And this guy was a custodian. He was cleaning up for a job. But they make it about race. And the more you talk about race, the more dividing you're going to have. And that's what it comes down to. The biggest issue in college is pro-choice. Anyone who's pro-life, you're a bigot, you're disrespected. They don't consider it murder. They don't consider it murder at all. They consider it the mother's choice, period. And if you disagree with them, you are, you're a bad person. And same as a lot of toxic African American people, not all of them. who really feel that the tortures of their past need to be rewarded now. And we have nothing to do with those tortures. They were horrible. They were absolutely horrible tortures. But guess what? You have to move on. The only way you're going to move on is if you forget about it. And they can't do that.
Well, it's funny, Chris, what you're saying about how they're brainwashed. Because, like, I've known for a long time, and my eyes were opened the biggest when we watched a bunch of information and videotapes by a creation scientist called Ken Hovind. And he talked about what's in the textbooks, and it's so true that they really are not teaching. They're teaching kids what to think, not how to think. And the brainwashing starts in kindergarten, literally in kindergarten. So of course, by the time you get to college, they're sold out. You know what I mean? They don't know any different or any better. By the time they reach college age, they're fully brainwashed. It's almost hard to even break through. And what's funny to me is that the college students today, too, they like to go around touting or acting like they're so highly educated and they're so knowledgeable. But yet you go around, and I've seen actually reporters and others go around and ask them simple questions, like who's the vice president? Or, you know, where is Mount Rushmore? Or, you know, just simple things, and they don't know the answers. But like you said, the victim mentality, and what's really scary to me, too, is not only the brainwashing, but if you do not agree with them, and I'm sure you've come up against this, then you're a racist. Nobody wants to be a racist, a homophobe, you know, anti-anything, you know what I mean? So, of course, they go along with that. And then on top of that, if you would disagree with them or have your own opinions, you are viciously, and I mean viciously, attacked and shamed. You know, and I'm sure if you're speaking up, I'm sure you've had to have experienced some of that.
I've been called deplorable. Deplorable. You're deplorable. Anyone who supports Donald Trump is deplorable. And this is coming from a very big gay guy from the GBLTQ Center, which the university invests so much money into this research when we have no classrooms that have the horrible equipment. We're putting all this money into this diversity craziness. And I say to him, Hillary Clinton took money from Saudi Arabia. She took money from the Islamic extremist countries that have no rights for women. They kill gays horribly. And then you support this woman who took money from her? Donald Trump hasn't said anything bad about gays. Let God be the judge on them, okay? Let God be the judge on them.
But Hillary,
I'm sorry?
No,
they don't see that. Doesn't matter what you say. Doesn't matter what you say about emails, Benghazi, Watergate. Doesn't matter about Bill Clinton. What matters is what appeals to them. And everything else is disregarded.
Yeah, I thought some of the gays were actually waking up. Because I think, especially after what happened, whether you agree whether it was a false flag or not, that's not the point. But after what happened in Florida in the nightclub, a lot of the gays started thinking, wow, like, they're going to let more of these Muslims in here. You know, we might, you know, these Islamic extremists or whatever, we might have an issue here. And I mean, I was under the impression, of course not all, and it's going to take it's going to be hard for them to reach out and wake them all up. But I heard a lot of them were waking up. But anyway, getting back to, like I said, obviously you've experienced it. You see this going on, even in the rallies. How you don't see Republicans going to Hillary rallies and blocking traffic and beating up people and all that, but you see it happening the other way around. Now, although I do believe a lot of that is planned and paid for, and they're plants by the Democratic Party, and paid plants at that, some of them, but still, this is the kind of mentality and the aggression that you see on the left. I mean, I remember just not too long ago, I watched a video where a college student wore the Donald Trump hat, "Make America Great Again," and he was being physically attacked and saying that was against the law. He can't wear that hat; it's offensive. What are you talking about? All it says is "Make America Great Again." It does, you know what I mean? Well, how is that offensive to anybody?
Because to them, Make America Great Again, they picture that as going back to, racial profiling and racist America. That's what they see. Wow. But America isn't great because what have we been building? What do we have? We have horrible roads, horrible airports, and then we're taking refugees in. We can't even take our own people. That's what Make America Great is. We build, we get bigger, we get stronger. Not this diversity stuff, which is going to make us weaker because they're offended by masculinity. For real, they don't want anything to do with masculinity. If you say toughen up, how dare you say toughen up? How dare you? Another thing, toys in the toy store. How dare you? This is what they say. There should not be boys sections or girls sections in the toy store.
Wow.
There should just be sections for everybody. Because what's wrong with a boy playing with Barbies when he's a kid? And that's how they think. And it scares me because I hope it's not the future of our country. But there's a lot of good people who are reasonable too. I have to remember there's a lot of good people.
Right. But you hit the nail right on the head about how there's nobody more hated, I think, and I think it's prevalent and evident, than the typical white American male. There's nobody more hated or oppressed. As much as they like to say, no, the black people are oppressed, or you know what I mean, or whatever group of people, it's actually the typical white American male who's not allowed to. Everybody can be gay and proud and black and proud and whatever and proud, but don't you dare say white and proud.
Yeah, don't you dare say all lives matter, because only black lives matter. Don't you say all lives matter, because then we're going to cause protests and burn down your stores. It's ridiculous.
And like you said about emasculating them, and it's to me that it's scary that they're that aggressive and hostile. I mean, to where you can't even wear a shirt or a hat. What happened to our American rights? That we have the right to support any candidate and stuff like that, and we can't even wear a hat or a shirt that just says Trump 2016. It's crazy.
Bill, I have a question for Chris. If you have to, Bill, you want to ask anything? But I have a question here.
Go ahead. You ask yours, and then I have a question for him.
Okay, great. Now, Chris, you said that you think that the difference in today's culture as far as young people and how they think is social media. Now, you are a partaker in social media as well. So what makes you different than your friends, and what are now you said that your classmates don't want to speak up. Now, you've got friends. Obviously, you guys get together and you open up. Now, what are your friends saying, and why hasn't social media herded you into the school of thought that they want you to be in?
Well, most people don't care about the election, if you think about it. Now more than ever, a lot of my friends have other things on their mind, even though they tend to be more common sense. They tend to be more rational. But as for social media, how come I haven't been sucked into the system? I think a lot of it has to do with my past, because I have family that came from a country that did suppress your views, that did say you cannot have religious freedom, that did put people in famine, okay? And I've seen people suffer, and I've seen what it is when you have a big government. Because they say the big government is a solution because it doesn't let capitalists take care of, does not let capitalists manipulate the worker. Pure capitalism, just as big government, it will fail because they will both manipulate the worker, and you do need a mixed system. But I'm getting off topic. Sorry.
No, it's okay.
Why hasn't social media affected me? It does affect me. I get angry. I get a little annoyed. But it's my background. It's just the way I look at things. I can't explain to you why I have my ideology. I try to be in the middle. I'm center right. I try to look at things through a filter and combine different viewpoints. And I just don't listen to one media source. I'm not a partisan, so to speak. I try to look at both sides and come up with a rational decision, because you can't believe everything you hear. You can't believe everything you hear anywhere.
And Chris, if I might piggyback on what you just said, and you can, let me know if you agree or disagree. But I think that another big thing with kids today, or kids in your age bracket that are going to school, I think really, like you said, they don't really care about the election. They have other things that they're thinking about or worrying about. And I really think it comes down to selfishness. And I think that's one of the reasons why Bernie was so, why they were all for Bernie. Number one, what is Bernie preaching? Free education, entitlements, higher pay, legalizing drugs like marijuana. They're all the things that kids want to hear. Oh yeah, I don't have to pay for education. I don't have to pay for my college. Oh, I get to smoke weed. Oh, like all these different things. But when you think about it, it's all about them. It's not really about the economy or safety or trade or any. It's nothing about making America great again or making lives in America better. It's all about them. What can you do for me? And that is the generation that we have raised. And a lot of parents have to take the ownership of that because of the way we've treated our kids and raised our kids and tried to give them. Everybody wants to give their kids better than they have, but we went beyond it in a way that's just unreal.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead. You want to say something?
Totally, I totally agree. Also, if you guys ever wanted to, I have this one friend who is very outspoken, and he will not agree with you on anything. He will not agree, but he will come on and he will challenge you guys, and that's where ideas come from. Because I agree with you guys on a lot of things, so I can't bring up the opposing argument, but that's just in the future if you guys would want to entertain that thought.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, we would.
Now, Bill, go ahead and answer, because I want to touch on something that Sue just said, but you go ahead and ask your question to Chris, and then I want to get back to something Sue just said.
Okay, sure. Chris, I'm kind of fascinated by the whole higher education system as it's set up today, and this is going to, kind of piggyback off of what Susan just talked about with Bernie Sanders. Now, when you look at what Bernie was proposing, and I think that as part of that was this anarchist kind of viewpoint that you were talking about, but also Bernie was looking to change a system that most people, when they're looking at it, and I think young people especially, look at it as a broken system. It's time to blow it up, so to speak. So I think that Bernie appealed to younger people because of that. I don't think that they consider his age or his experience as something that was detrimental to them. I think that they saw it as something, like Susan was just saying, something that could totally benefit them and not anyone else. So with that in mind, and this socialist agenda that, let's face it, that is the left today. That is what it's all about, and I think that you alluded to that in the beginning of the show, that it's all about socialism. And so, how is this portrayed on college campuses today? Now, there was a time in our country, and not too far in the distant past, even I could think back to the time when I was going to school, and socialism and capitalism were viewed as like the devil. That was something that couldn't be considered. It was mom and apple pie and the red, white, and blue. So socialism and communism, that was the other end of the world. But now today you have this viewpoint on college campuses that promotes this progressive agenda, this socialism agenda. So where does it start, Chris? Is it in the classroom that it starts, or is it among your peers that it starts? And does it grow from there? Because
well, I think obviously, now it comes from the beginning, parenting, like Sue mentioned. Right now it's a lot easier, to give your kid an iPod and say, go. Just do whatever. I'll give you food, just do whatever, leave me alone. Starts in public school. Public school also, a lot of the teachers there are liberal too. You start with that mentality, that just the liberal mentality. I don't even know how to explain it. But then I want to go back to the college thing that you mentioned, because I could really rail on college. Yeah. It all comes down to incentives. And that's what that's why capitalism is so great. Incentive. Okay? Because without incentives, no one's going to be productive.
Yeah.
So, such as Bernie Sanders promoted free college. If you provide free college to everybody, there's no incentive to learn, because let me tell you what college is right now. State schools. I'm going to be honest, and I fall into the cracks as well. You can fail a class and you will still pass, because teachers will curve the score. They all curve the score. You get a 50%, he'll curve it 20%, so you get a 70% and pass.
Wow.
There's no respect, and that's almost every class.
Out even when you're younger, though, Chris. I mean, nowadays, back when we were younger, and I'm sure Bill and Joe can attest to this, there were losers. Nowadays, the baseball games, basketball games, whatever, everybody gets a trophy. There are no winners, no losers. This is, again, the part of the problem. Everybody, these kids are coddled. They don't have to work hard, like you said. Here's an iPod, anything you want, here you go. And then they wonder why they're so selfish, and all they think about is themselves.
It's not about the education. It's not about the education. This is how the system is. It's not about the education. It's about the credit. If the kid got the credit, they don't care about the education. So what's the point of college if you're going to college for credit? You're supposed to get college to become more enlightened and more educated. And the problem is, teachers will stand, and you're paying extreme amounts of money for this, and the state is, because a lot of people get financial aid and live here for free, more than you would think. They say college is really hard to get into. Newsflash, a lot of kids can get into college. There's a lot of opportunities for lower-income people to get into college if you want to. And some people do, and they come here, and they go to school, and this is a big thing for inner cities, because they do go to school. They get a lot of financial aid. But they are not trained. You're putting them in a bigger arena than they know how to play in, and that's setting them up for failure.
Wow.
If that makes sense.
Nothing's free. So even though Bernie's saying, oh, free, 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 nothing's free. Somebody's got to pay for it. So that means the taxpayers are going to pay for it.
Right.
And we're already taxed up to like 40% of our pay. I mean, people can barely get by. You have kids, including college kids, can't move out of their parents' homes because they can't afford to live on one income, and that's even if they do work 40 hours a week. And you have adults out here who work 2 incomes, and we're still barely getting by, and they want to take more. It's ridiculous. It's gonna collapse in on itself if it doesn't get turned around. Somebody's got to turn it around somewhere, and Trump's the only one coming up with solutions, or at least talking it. Whether he's going to do it or not, hey, I don't know. Only time will tell if he even gets the chance to. But at least he's one of the people out there saying what a lot of people are thinking.
Yeah, I agree. Totally agree.
Joe?
Yeah. Hey, Sue, I want to go back to something you said a little while ago about young people, and basically it's a "what can you do for me" attitude when it comes to who they're going to vote for or how they approach life. I think that transcends age. I think that goes up until the time that we die. I think that is why people vote the way that they do. And this was one of my icebreaker questions in the first or second show. I don't even remember what I asked, but I remember the answer was this. It's almost like a Jeopardy type of situation. What can you do for me? I think people are going to vote for who they're going to vote for because they consider how it will benefit them personally or their immediate family the best. Not necessarily, and here's the difference between a politician and a statesman. A statesman will do what's best for the country, regardless of what it means to his political career. You know, how many times do we turn on the news and there's something that's going on in the political world, and ultimately it gets to, what is this going to mean for their reelection? What is this going to mean for their constituency? What is this going to mean for them personally going forward in their political career? Well, you know what? I couldn't really give a rat's ass about their political career. I think what people have to start focusing on is what's best for the country, even though it may cost them personally. What is it? It almost has to, like, we have to reboot the way we think about politics. We have to understand, first of all, what the Constitution says about who we are as a nation, and how I would love, Christopher, for you to tell me what in your you're in your 4th year, right?
Yes.
Tell me, in those 4 years, what has your experience been with your professors or any class as far as understanding what the Constitution says about this country?
First, I'm a business major, okay? That doesn't come up a lot. But I also have a minor in political science, so I've had a lot of political science classes. The Constitution comes up, so for example, the Second Amendment. They tell you that the Second Amendment is not, we'll get into the Second Amendment. We don't talk about the Constitution that much. Nobody knows anything about the Constitution. They hand out little constitutions and people throw them away. There's the answer to that. Nobody talks about the Constitution. Nobody knows anything about the Constitution. They might know the First Amendment. But, for example, what they will say about the Second Amendment, the Second Amendment does not preserve the rights for an individual to bear arms. That's what they will say. It only preserves the right for a militia by the state to protect you, and that's what they mean, and that's what they will say. But then that was totally debunked with Scalia in the Heller decision. Yes. when they lifted the ban off of pistols in D.C. So there you go. So it is constitutional. They're wrong, but they don't understand that. They want to put regulations on guns. They don't see a need. They don't have respect for the Constitution. They don't see, once we trample the Constitution, America is done, because the Constitution is what made America great. Amen. Following the Constitution. These guys weren't dummies. They knew what they were doing. You know.
Yeah, and this goes back, Chris and Bill and Sue, to what we talked about earlier in this series about how government continues to grow and grow and grow, even though we hear voices saying we got to shrink government, we got to do this, we got to get government out of that. It never happens. It continues to grow and grow and grow. I remember when Barack Obama was integral in securing congressional support for bailing out General Motors. Do you guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Now, I got into arguments with people. No, this is not the government's role to bail out failed businesses.
That's right.
And the response was always, well, it was going to mean the loss of jobs. It was going to mean a detriment to so many different people. And we had to do it to keep our economy. And you know what I said? You know what? No, you've got to stop thinking that way, because that sort of thinking perpetuates the whole problem that exists in Washington today and in each individual state as they spend tax money or payers' money as well. Yes, we have to suffer in order to change. We have gotten so far away from the boundaries that are set by the Constitution that we have what we have today. Government entitlements everywhere. It's easy to point out welfare checks that go to inner city people. Okay? That's easy to point out. Do we focus on the welfare that was given to General Motors? No, we don't do that, because it's much easier to focus on the one aspect of how government misuses our money. We have to go back to getting government where it was originally designed. We have a blueprint for it. It's called the Constitution. For me, the scriptures, nothing approaches the scriptures. It's not a 1 and 1A thing. But as far as man's writings, I don't hold anything in higher esteem or regard than the Constitution of the United States. Now, the Constitution is not a perfect document. There are cracks in the Constitution. And there is also a book called Cracks in the Constitution. It's not a perfect system, but it is a good system that we have deviated from, and that's why we get to points today. So, like you brought up the free college thing. No, it's not free. Somebody's paying for it. Taxpayers are paying for it. It's more of a burden on taxpayers, and it grows the national debt. Donald Trump is the only one who brought up that we are $20 trillion in debt in this country. Does anybody care about that?
Nope.
Like, what if a husband came home one night and his wife said, honey, I just looked over our finances. We owe about $750,000. And the husband's like, what? What? Why was it? So, how do we, the bottom, how do we get to a point where a nation as great as America was at one point, I wasn't part of that great nation. I was too young, and I wasn't even born, let's say.
Yeah.
But how do we get to the point where we are now a debtor nation in $20 trillion in debt? The answer to me is, this is what I talk about. These are facts. It's irresponsible, bad government that keeps handing out money to people who don't earn it. You know what? Education is not a right. I'm sorry. Education is not a right. I'm going to make another statement that you guys can agree with or disagree with. Healthcare is not a right.
Agree totally.
Healthcare is not a right.
Well,
you guys can fill in the...
I think that one of the reasons why we're a debtor nation is because we used to be a producer and now we're a consumer nation. That's one of the biggest problems. That is a big, big problem. That is one of the big parts of it. Although I agree, it's also from bad management, bad government, overspending, no budgets, just make more money, all that. I totally agree with that. But the biggest problem, what's made us rich, is being a producing nation, and now we don't produce hardly anything. And we just consume everything. And that is one of our biggest problems.
The critique against that... Sorry.
Yeah, so real quick, what I want to say about the Second Amendment is that I always support the Second Amendment. And I do think we have every right to protect ourselves, our family, our property. The Second Amendment, though, was created to protect ourselves against our own government. Mm-hmm. That's really why it was even created. And like you were just saying, Joe, about how government keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And unfortunately, and what a lot of people don't realize, and what you might be shocked to hear me say right now, is that government is already too big. It is already at a tyrannical level.
No, and that's not shocking.
Even if every single American owned a gun, like back in the day, they would just march on Washington with their guns, or march on their governor's office or whatever, and it worked. Believe me, what the people wanted done, got done. That worked. But in this day and age, because of our military technology, our warfare, our weaponry, that they didn't have back then, do you think if a bunch of us started marching towards Washington right now with all of our guns or whatever we had, whatever weapons we had, do you think that our government would care in the least? They would just send drones to drone us without losing one manpower. They lose 0 manpower. Drones, boom, you're done. Any other insurgencies want to come on up?
Mm-hmm.
That's where we're at. And people don't realize that. Government is already too big.
I don't think there's any question about that, Sue. And you know, this is the great thing about what we do here is that somebody can say something, and then we're not on any time constraints. We don't have to worry about advertisers. So it's so great to be able to just respond to something somebody said. Now, as far as you were bringing up the point that it's not all just bad government that is responsible for where we are economically today. Now, that's true, but government does have something to do with that. Now, I bring to you OPIC, not OPEC, oil and petroleum exporting countries, not that, OPIC. Been around for decades. It's called the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that before. Now, I'll explain what it is. But what was very interesting to me when I was investigating Paul Manafort, the campaign manager after Corey Lewandowski and before Kellyanne Conway, Paul Manafort, who disappeared into thin air, was the president of OPIC back in the 80s. OPIC stands for the Overseas Private Investment Corporation. And what that was the federal government, backed by taxpayer dollars, would guarantee American companies, and you guys, I encourage you to Google OPIC, OPIC. They would encourage, the federal government would encourage businesses to leave the country, and they would be protected against nationalization. If Company A that made widgets moved to South America, and something happened in South America where the government there seized their assets and nationalized them, the United States government would guarantee to cover their losses. So that is a government problem. That's not just a trade problem. That is a government-created problem. They have no right to guarantee any company, and OPIC is still around. OPIC still exists. They have no right to guarantee a company that leaves this country and fails as a result of a coup or some type of nationalization or even a natural disaster. Now, these are some of the things that nobody thinks about anymore. I've known this for 35 years. It's outrageous.
Well, guys, we're about 45 minutes into the show, a little over 45 minutes, and that was our introduction. So, Chris, now it's your turn. We want to turn now to the icebreaker segment of our show, and I don't know how much icebreaking we need after that discussion, which was great. You guys are awesome. But Chris, you have a question for all of us, so why don't you fire away, and then we'll each go.
All right. So during the convention at the RNC, during Trump's speech, Trump he looked at everybody and said, "I alone can fix it." Many people took that statement as an authoritarian statement. Okay. Do you see authoritarianism in Donald Trump? And does that scare you? That's my question. Do you see somebody who has a really large ego, who, if you don't help him, he will do everything in his power to get back at you? And could that be considered toxic? I'm playing devil's advocate with this question.
Yeah.
You know,
sure.
But what do you think? Do you think he's a little bit authoritarian?
Good question. All right, who wants to go first?
Who's going to go first? Well, I mean, I'll go first. I have a couple of quick things that I thought of off the top of my head, and then you guys can, spin off of it. But I totally get what you're saying, and I can totally see his enemies trying to say, "Oh, see, he's so egotistical. Oh, he's going to be a Hitler, or he's tyrannical, or he thinks he's God. Only he can fix it." I actually think that that's just his confidence in his knowledge, because, like he says, and he's been on the inside and the outside. He's like he said in one of his debates, even if Hillary wins, she ain't going to change any of those because it's her friends that benefit. And guess what? Whether she likes it or not, because she doesn't change any of that, I'm going to still benefit from it. You know, and so he knows the inner workings of it. And I think that it's basically by him saying that, I think it's just him showing, you know, his confidence and his knowledge. And he has been a successful businessman. I think that he already has said that he doesn't profess to be the expert in every single, you know, topic or discussion or problem or issue. But one of the things that makes a businessman successful is he knows how to put winning teams together. He knows about how to get the experts on each subject and put them together and hold them accountable. That's what successful businessmen do. Exactly. They delegate the tasks, and they delegate them to the most...
Ronald Reagan was that. That's what Ronald Reagan did. He was a delegator. He wasn't the smartest man. He was an actor, but he came around. He got the good people together, and he did a good job. I agree with you.
Right. And so that's where I feel he's coming from.
Yeah, I you know, Sue, I think that you took the words right out of my mouth. It's as soon as Chris asked that question, that's the first thing I thought of when he says that I alone can take care of this problem. Now, let's look at context. I alone, okay? It's either him or Hillary at this point. So that's what he's thinking when he says that. It ain't going to be Hillary Clinton because she's been part of the problem her whole life. She's been part of the problem. Not only part of the problem, she has contributed, in my opinion, greatly to where we are today as a nation, as a depraved nation. But I think that what he's saying, I alone can fix it. Yeah, absolutely. He's not saying that, you know, I'm going to run here and fix that. When let's say after he assumes the presidency, I'm going to run over here when this happens. I'm going to run up. No, he is going to actually know how to put together a presidential cabinet with people that he trusts, that will do the job that it's required to do. What does the Secretary of State do? What does the Secretary of Defense do? What are their job requirements? And then he is going to put them in. And if he fails, if he doesn't have the right person in, then something's got to change, and he's got to be held accountable for it. But I don't see that as authoritarian at all. What I see is, and Sue, you mentioned this as well, confidence, rather than what I usually see is a wishy-washy, mealy-type politician that we've come to know. Somebody that says, yeah, I'm going to take care of that. You know what? Maybe they won't take care of it. You know, they're not perfect. Donald Trump is not going to be, if he becomes the president, he's not going to be a perfect president. But I don't want to hear politics speak. I don't want to hear career politicians speak. I want to hear somebody who has fresh ideas, again, bound by the Constitution, that has the confidence to... First of all, do you like the way things are right now? Do you think that our economy is good? Do you think it's going to continue to grow, or do you think it's going to get worse? Do you like the way our social programs work? If you like the way government is, how big it is now, you know, I'm not the first person to say this, then go ahead and vote for Hillary Clinton if you think politics, as usual, is your gig. But if you really want... Now, you know, Barack Obama ran on this back in 2008. You know, the president of change. He's going to come in and bring change. He changed nothing. He made things 10 times, 100 times worse.
Oh, he definitely changed it.
Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I'm a fool, but I believe that, you know, if 100% is the goal of change, and we have a constitutional government, and everything is the way it should be, then maybe Donald Trump is 50% of that, or maybe he's 60%, or maybe 40%. I know that Hillary Clinton is going to be 0% of that. So I'm willing to give Donald Trump a chance. Again, he's not going to be a dictator. He's not allowed by the Constitution to be a dictator.
Exactly.
But I think that his approach this whole time, and I'll tell you, the mainstream media has done everything in their power to take the eye off of what he has actually said. They will focus on the Access Hollywood tape. They will focus on these 11 women that came forward. They will focus on everything other than what he has already said.
Yeah.
As far as what his actual plan is. They will deny that he has a plan. So, authoritative is not, authoritative, it has a negative connotation, but it's not necessarily negative. If I'm an authoritative father, that means I have a set of rules that I govern my children by. Now, the question could be: are those rules? Is there a problem with those rules? If there's no problem with those rules, and I uphold those rules of the household, then I'm an authoritative father. Doesn't mean I don't show love, but you know what? You don't get away with things.
Right.
And again, if Donald Trump assumes the presidency, he's going to be bound by the Constitution. He should be bound by the Constitution. Now, we know that is not the case nowadays. The Constitution has been trampled on. But in theory, he's bound by the Constitution, so he can't be, let's say, an authoritative dictator like a Hitler or a Mussolini or a Stalin.
Yeah. Well, I could say that, Sue and Joe, that I agree with both of you on the points that you made. I'd like to put a different angle out there. And this could tie into what you both have said anyway, but when Donald Trump made the statement, "I alone can fix this," one of the things that I think that he's alluding to here is that whether you're looking at the Democrats or you're looking at the Republicans, you have two parties here that cannot get the job done. They've had all this time, right? Hundreds of years to be able to put forth their ideologies and their platforms. And guess what? Neither one of them can fix the problem. Donald Trump is an outsider. He's not bound by a party. In fact, his own party are trying to run away as far as they can from him. And I think what Donald Trump meant by that is he's bringing Paul Ryan and the House, and he's bringing McConnell and the Senate to task here. And he's also bringing the record of Barack Obama and the progressives to task here, and he's saying, look at me, I'm not bound by either one of these parties, and I'm the only one who can fix this. And that, to me, is what he meant when he said that.
And too, I think, just to piggyback off of what you said, Bill, a lot of people are showing that on Facebook. There's a meme where it says Trump with a lion, and it says, because these two aren't working, and it shows the elephant and the donkey. And I think it's pertinent to bring up too that even Trump said, if I can't do it, if they stop me, and I have unlimited resources, you know what I mean? Then if I can't do it, he was pretty much saying, then nothing can be done. You know, it's already too far. And I totally agree with him. And another thing to bring up too, and this is when they were all running, all 17 against all 17 on the Republican side and however many on the Democratic side. He was the only, and still the only candidate that says that he loves the American people, he loves America, and he loves Americans. And he truly wants to do this to better our country and for Americans to have a more fair shake and a better life. Because, I mean, why else would he left like the richest, poshest life, of luxury for this? To be scrutinized and, crucified and, he's got nothing to gain. Like, tell me how he gains from this. The salary of a president isn't better than his salary. You know, even the White House isn't even as nice as some of his mansions. What does Trump have to gain?
Well, I'll tell you, in
He's
all
not even
fairness,
willing to take a paycheck.
Yeah, I know, but here's what the answer to that would be, and you know, to me, that this is obvious. That they would say that the opposition would say, well, here's what you gain. It's his ego. It's about his ego, and yeah, he's been the head of a very successful multinational company with interests all over the world, and he has rubbed elbows with the richest people in the world. But he's never been president. He's never had that power. So I guess in response to what you just said, the only thing that can be said about that, what does he have to gain? Well, he's never been president. So I guess the question is out there, you know, is this something that will fulfill, if he has an ego that desires that, is this what he's after?
And this is where his ego comes in a good way. Because his ego is so big that he cannot stand failure. He cannot see himself fail. So I think that if he really wants to be looked at as a winner, because everything's about winning, he will do a good job. He's the type of person who has conviction. Okay? So if he goes in there, if he fails, he will not live with himself. I think it's about his image and his mind, and he will do anything in his power to make people like him. And to do that, you got to do a good job.
Good point.
Yeah, I totally agree. To me, that's a good thing. His ego is a good thing in that way.
Yeah. I agree with you. I guess every politician has ego. Yeah. We said the same thing at the same time.
Exactly.
All right, Chris. One of the things that we do in our icebreaker is that the person asking the question also answers the question. So if you want to answer your own question for us, how do you see what Donald Trump uttered by saying that he alone could fix it?
He alone could fix it. I take Joe's point as well. It's either him or Hillary. She's not going to fix it. She's been there 30 years. She's part of the problem. She's made millions of dollars off of her position. So I agree with Joe on that point. But I also think authoritarianism is also good because it means you have conviction. But it's a mixture. I mean, there is a scary aspect. When he says, for example, executive action, he says he wants to put a 25% tax on companies. This is going back to the productivity part. 25% on companies that are sending their products to be made in different countries. That might be considered authoritarian unless he goes to the Constitution. I think it comes down that people people say he's authoritarian, but they don't understand we have a system of checks and balances. We have a Congress that if he ever gets to the point where it's a little irrational, unconstitutional, we have a Congress that should hypothetically stop him. So that's where I stand on it. I think that if we have trust in the system that our Constitution says, he has no way of becoming a dictator or authoritarian because our Constitution doesn't let it. And I also think that since he's a businessman, he knows how to negotiate, and he will compromise. He will talk to Democrats and Republicans, and I really think he'll compromise. And usually the best solution for me is a solution that's in the middle.
And that's a good point, too, because I think Trump is a person, like you called yourself, I think you, what did you call yourself, a center right, or something like that? I think that would be a good description of Trump, too, because I think he's very center, but I think he's center right. You know, just like you described yourself, he leans right, but he's very center, he's very negotiable. Obviously, he was good friends with Hillary at one time, or at least I guess she looked at him as a friend as long as she was getting his money.
Yeah.
But like I said, I think that he is willing to sit down and hear all sides and trying to bring both parties together to actually be productive to get things done.
Right. Here's one thing that you will never see on the mainstream media. When Christopher was talking about Trump taxing exiting countries 20% and how the Constitution would prohibit that. Here's one thing that you'll never see. I have it right here. Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution.
Mm-hmm.
The Congress, that's the House of Representatives and the Senate, shall have power to lay and collect taxes,
Right.
duties, imposts, and excises to pay the debts and provide for the common defense and general welfare of the United States. But all duties, imposts, and excises shall be uniform throughout the United States. So that there is one boundary of the Constitution, that it is Congress alone has the power to lay taxes, lay and collect taxes. Now, like I said about 10 minutes ago, the Constitution has been trampled on because also in Section 8, let's see where it is here. Yeah, Section 8 down here, Article 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, Article 10, Congress shall have the power to declare war.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we haven't had a constitutional war since when, Bill?
Since World War II.
World War II. Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. What else am I missing? All of the skirmishes around the world that they don't want to call war, they call them police actions. Kuwait. Well, that was the first Iraq. That was the first Iraq. None of those were constitutional. Congress is the body, as per the Constitution, to make a declaration of war. Congress has not declared war since World War II. But nobody seems to care. This is what scares me more than anything, is that we have America is what it is because of the Constitution, because we have a architectural blueprint. Imperfect as it is, it's as good as there is in the world, in my opinion. When people say America's the greatest nation, why is it the greatest nation in the world? Because of that document right there.
Yeah. But here's the thing, Joe. You have progressives on the left that will state that that document is evolving, that it's outdated, that it doesn't really mean what it was written about, 230 years ago, whatever it was. They'll say that, and Chris brought this up regarding the Second Amendment. Well, the Second Amendment's not about individual gun rights. It's about, providing a militia. Well, a militia is comprised of individuals with weapons. The government didn't provide the militia with the weapons. They had their own. But my point is that they no longer view the Constitution today. This is progressives that I'm talking about. They no longer view the Constitution today as an original document. That document is ever changing, and it is ever evolving into something better.
And to make matters worse, Bill, and Chris brought this up, we are in the Facebook generation where anybody can say whatever they want, and the lines are blurred. And as it used to be, we would understand constitutional matters from reliable sources. Now you have a whole generation of younger people being brought up on, and this is a tough situation to be in, because I defend the Internet, but I also have a problem with the Internet as far as something is good as long as it's producing something good, as long as it's based on reliable, verifiable information. But as far as the Constitution evolving, Bill, and that is a progressive tactic that the Constitution is. No, it's very clear language. Okay, it's not evolving. It's not changing. It's the same, and it's the same today as it was over 200 years ago when it was first conceived and written down. And the only thing that can change it is a constitutional convention.
Right.
to either repeal an amendment or to add an amendment.
That's right.
There's a process that we have to go through. And what happens is, you have all of these opinions that are thrown out there, and people latch on to them. Look, I have a copy of the Constitution right here. I just printed it out tonight because I thought it might be good to go to. It took about 18 pages. The Bill of Rights, the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, all of the amendments. It's fascinating reading, and it's sad that everybody can name the starting lineup of their basketball team, but they don't know that the first thing about the Constitution.
Yeah.
Or American history, for that matter.
Or American history.
And unfortunately, it's being changed in the textbook.
And another thing, maybe this is a little bit off topic, but something that really got my attention on Columbus Day. Okay, all these students do not celebrate Columbus Day. Like most of us don't anyway. But their thing was, hey, America killed Native Americans.
Oh,
They defend Native Americans so hard, and I agree. But guess what? Every country had to kill people to become great, to become successful. And that is a bogus argument. But for them, that's what sticks to them. That's what's meaningful to them, that we suppress Native Americans out of their own land. And I always say, it's not reality right now. Why are you bringing that up? And that's something they think about. Just wanted to put that in there.
So not only that, that's a good point to bring up, Chris. And actually, though, this is what our youth is being told. Be ashamed. Be ashamed of your beginning and where you start and all that. It's all about
patriotism has become a bad thing. Patriotism has become a bad thing. It's not good to be proud of your country because our country had suppressed you. But guess what? Our country has given you the best life in the world just by being here. And they don't understand that.
No, they don't.
Well, they can be proud because, first off, when we took over the land from the Native Americans, that's the way all land was conquered everywhere around the world.
Yeah.
It was divide and conquer. We didn't do anything illegal. We didn't do anything wrong. They're just whining because they lost and we won. But that was the reality back then. It wasn't all this PC, blubbery stuff, and everything that they like to try. Oh, the evil white man. And first off, let's just talk about the Native Americans themselves. They were divide and conquer among tribes.
No question.
They were doing it.
No question.
They were killing each other over land and conquering.
That's a really good point. I never thought about that.
Yeah, even amongst their own tribes, let alone, the white man or whatever, they were doing it even amongst themselves. But yet, we're evil because we won? No. Actually, we're merciful because we let you live. We said, okay, here you go. Here's a plot of land. We'll let you stay on there.
Yes, and you get tax-exempt status.
Yeah, and bingo halls and casinos and...
I mean, I could go on and on about how we, what we did that was merciful, instead of totally annihilating them, which we could have, And actually, we wanted to do it the peaceful way, and we tried to buy their land. They wanted to do it the savage way, and then after we were winning, then they wanted to do it the peaceful way. Oh, yeah, now we want to do it with lands, deeds, and stuff. Yeah, okay, well, that's what we tried to do when we came here. We wanted to do it the savage way.
Right.
So now we're doing it the savage way. Now that we're winning, now you want to do it in the deed way. And yet we relented and said, okay. You know what I mean? So, no, don't tell me the white man was evil and, we're savages and how we stole the land. We didn't do anything wrong. We did it the way it was done then.
Christopher, you should have said. You know what you should have said? You should have offered a challenge to the students that didn't want to engage in Columbus Day celebrations as a result of the guilt of displacing and killing Native Americans. You should have asked them, well, then you're part of that ancestry as well. Then what are you doing with your guilt? Maybe you should find a country that hasn't started in that way.
A great point.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they bring up the issues, and they bring up the complaints. Well, what's the answer? Well, what are we going to do today about that? Seriously, what are we going to do? Show me a land. Let's all go to Alaska. I don't know.
And not to mention that our ancestors have nothing to do with it, because most of them were back in Europe not that long ago. My ancestors have nothing to do with it. So just because I'm white, you're going to label me as being, anti-Native American and being very pro-suppression? No. I think it's ridiculous, and it's just a point that they stick to. I don't know why they stick to it, but that's something that really gets me tingling.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's reverse racism. They're actually more racist than they claim that we are.
I agree.
It's ridiculous. We would never get away with black pageants, black-only TV, white-only pageants. But yet they have that. What are you saying? Making a point of it. Everybody lets it happen.
I'll tell you what, Sue. I'll differ in a little way here. You guys want to have black this and black that and black this. It's probably the Latinos and Koreans but the most prominent are the blacks that do it. You wanted to do that in private life? Go ahead. I couldn't care less. Don't do it in Congress. Don't have a congressional black caucus.
Mm-hmm.
Don't do it there.
Imagine if we had a white caucus. That would be the end of the world.
No, I don't. You have to imagine that, because that's never going to happen. If you want to have an all-black club and you don't want any to come in, you know what? That's fine. If you don't like me as a white person, just don't infringe on my rights. That's all. If you don't like white people...
This is the thing, though, Joe. I don't even want white TV or white pageants or white caucus.
No, I don't either.
We are all of one race, the human race. That's what I'm talking about. The racism's never going to die because they keep perpetuating it by doing this. By always segregating. They're the ones segregating.
I know. That's exactly right. I mean, it's a funny thing about it. I tell you, and I've said this before, I've never watched more mainstream media news than I have in the last 6 months, and the one thing that has stuck out to me, those people that are decrying Trump as a divider, you listen to what they're saying, and you look at the positions that they hold, they are the ones who are responsible for the continuing of the division of people.
Oh, there's no question.
They want to perpetuate it.
Yep.
But they deflect it onto, he's like the perfect scapegoat, Donald Trump. When he says something that might be misconstrued, man, I'm telling you, the floodgates open, and they bring on the congressional. Just this morning, I'm watching Angela something or other on CNN. She's the former head of the Congressional Black Caucus. Now, what is that? Why do you even need that today?
Yeah. Well, hey, Chris, good question, and some good dialogue going on there. So thanks a lot for that.
No problem. I love it. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. All right. Hey, let's get into some issues here, and let's start with this one, Chris, because I know that you're well aware of this point, and you've been interviewed about this, and that's on the Second Amendment. So I just want to read 3 quotes, and then all 3 of you can comment. This was printed in the Washington Free Beacon on October the 1st, 2015. And this is a quote, and this is from Hillary Clinton. "The Supreme Court is wrong on the Second Amendment, and I'm going to make that case every chance I get." And this was in regards to the Heller Amendment. Second quote, MSNBC, April the 25th, 2016. Quote, "We're going to start the very first day and tackle the gun lobby." And now the third quote. This is in USA Today on April the 28th, 2016. When it comes to guns, we just have too many guns. So there you have it. That's what Hillary Clinton believes about guns. So
coming from Mexico and the CIA, whatever.
Yeah. All right, so let's get into this discussion. Second Amendment.
She's allowed to peddle guns.
All right, who's up first?
Those were all Hillary quotes?
Those were all Hillary quotes.
Well, Bill, if she gets into office, again, and I brought this up on the last program. She can't introduce legislation. That's not what the Constitution. Laws begin in the House of Representatives. They pass there. They go to the Senate. They pass there. They go to the President for his or her signature or veto.
Yeah.
So she's not going to be able to do anything about that. However, she can make her views known, as she has throughout all of these past incidents, beginning with Sandy Hook back in 2012. And, how many of them have there been? Charleston, the church event, and the Virginia, the on-air shooting, San Bernardino, Orlando.
Oregon.
She's made... What's that?
Oregon.
Yeah, the Umpqua College alleged shooting. She's made her position very clear, and she's actually had on Erica Lafferty, the daughter of the alleged principal of Sandy Hook, Dawn Hochsprung, who was integral in my opinion, defeating Bernie Sanders, as Erica Lafferty was used in her messages on television why Hillary Clinton should be the Democratic nominee for president. So she's made her position very clear. She's speaking out of both sides of her mouth. She's saying on one side that we have to do something about guns. There are too many people are dying. Well, you know what? I agree with that. I wouldn't like to see anybody die from a gunshot. But the problem is you're not going to correct that with more laws. We already have laws on the books. If you look at Chicago, Chicago has exceeded 600 homicides by gun this year, eclipsing all of last year already, and they have more ordinances and state laws and city laws as far as gun ownership than any other large city. So more laws doesn't correct the problem. Mm-hmm. As we've said many times before, Bill, if there's a law against something, there's a black market for something. If there's a law against prostitution, you go find a prostitute at some house somewhere. The law against drugs, you go down to the street corner and you buy drugs. If there's a law against guns, you bypass the laws and you buy from somebody selling somewhere. So it's not a government solution. First of all, there's no solution to be had. It is what it is. We go back to a conversation that we had about an hour and a half ago. I don't know if it was Sue or Chris that said this. It starts in the family. You respect life from the very beginning. You have a father and you have a mother. I know it's old-fashioned, but I don't care. You have a father and you have a mother, and you raise your children to respect life. That's where it starts.
Yeah.
I agree that there's got to be certain laws. I mean, you can't everybody go running around like the old Wild West and everybody shoots whoever they want. I mean, of course, there's got to be some reasonable regulations, and one of those, I think, is that no felon should be allowed to have a gun. I think that's a reasonable law. You're a lawbreaker, so you shouldn't have the right to a gun, just like they don't have the right to vote. So there should be certain regulations, but as far as the Second Amendment goes, the statistics show that in the states where it's it's not only legal to open carry and to conceal and carry, like Texas and other states, that actually the crime is lower.
Yeah.
Because people who are about to rob somebody, they know that these people are probably armed, and I'm going to get killed if I break into this house.
Right.
That's why it's just logical.
Right.
Chris?
Yeah, the first thing that happened in the 1930s under Hitler's Germany, what did they do? They took away the guns of the people.
Uh-huh.
They took away the power from the people. And look what happened. For me, I'll just tell you my opinion. I'm pro-Second Amendment. I believe every individual has a right to bear arms, whether it be for sport or for defense, because we don't know. We think everything's so perfect. Look what's happening in the world. Anything can happen. We think that America's so great that our government cannot come against us, cannot become a tyranny. I know that's kind of far-fetched, but we do not know. And the beauty of America is that our Constitution gives power to the people. Okay? And this power is not negotiable. It is clearly stated. And like Joe said, look at Chicago. Most gun laws ever. Most deaths ever. Okay? There's no correlation. There's no correlation. Just like prohibition in the 1920s. If you ban it, people are going to get it.
Yep.
And that's where I stand.
Yep. I totally agree. You disarm the people like Hitler did, that's the first step. Although, because then there's definitely less resistance. Although, like I said, even if they did have resistance, it's already at a tyrannical level. We couldn't really stop anybody in government. You know what I mean? It's not with the technology like drones. And they're already passing laws. If you've read any of the laws that Obama has already signed into law, it makes it legal for them to drone Americans. All they have to do is say, "Oh, they were a terrorist."
Yeah.
So, and there's no really guidelines on who they label as a terrorist and who they don't. You know, and I think they can plot people as terrorists, even though they might not be. Like, for instance, the two brothers that got, basically labeled terrorists in Boston bombings. I don't want to go too off on a tirade as to what's false flag and what isn't, but like I said, they can label anybody they want as a terrorist.
Yeah, they can.
And also, when you have a gun, you got to be smart. You got to lock your gun up. You have to be a responsible gun owner, and you can't trust everybody. But guess what? We have a Constitution, and if you fail, and we have laws, and if you do a mistake, if you break the law, then the court and the law should take you accountable. It's not like there's a free pass. If you break the law, you're done.
Right.
Yep.
You know, I mean, there is laws against it. If you break it, you should go to jail and you should be tried in court.
Right. Well, that's another problem too. You know, we've watered down the punishment so much. I mean, there's people that kill people, and there's people that kill people and only serve a couple years, or depending on the case or the situation.
I know.
Back when people got the death penalty for taking a life, I'm sure there was a lot less murders. Nobody wants to die. So, like I said, when you look at other countries who are, people would look at them as, oh gosh, they're so strict or uncivilized or whatever. But you know what? You do something, you get whipped. Not only that, but publicly. They still do that in certain countries. You steal something, some of it's a little extreme, but you steal something, they'll cut off your hand. Or whatever. Yeah. Like I said, it's a little extreme, but guess what? The crime in those countries is so low. Ridiculously low. Because people know that there are consequences to your crime.
Yep.
So, I have a question, because I don't know. Where do the illegal guns come from? Like Chicago, a big black market. Where do those guns come from?
That's a great question, Chris. And I don't know
Do they come from Mexico? I don't know. I mean, that's what they said. They come from Mexico, the coyotes and the cartel. Fast and Furious, that's a different topic with Eric Holder, which they were shooting us with our own rifles, our own guns, which was ridiculous. But still, where did these guns come from? Why can we not control the black market? I don't understand. That's what the problem is.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, I mean, Chris, you have crimes that are committed, you have guns that are confiscated, and who knows what happens to these guns once they come into the possession of law enforcement. I mean, they can really come from anywhere. I mean, really, you're never going to. It's like asking where the drugs come from.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you want to know how many drugs are in college? So many drugs. That's what kids are doing. They're not studying; they're doing drugs. Just saying. Where do they come from? Do they come? I'm going into Mexico now. Is Mexico accountable for this? Where is all this coming from? I mean, nobody knows. I think that's where you got to find out first.
Well,
that's what I'm finding out. That really all this does come from the government up. You know what I mean? Like it stems from government level. But
maybe the government wants us to do drugs.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're benefiting from it. They're making a lot of money off of it. That's like one of the reasons why they want to legalize marijuana, because they say, you know what, we don't want to let the illegal drug runners make the money anymore. The government will sell it, and then we'll make the money.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all
and then
about.
everyone's going to become stupid.
Yeah,
and that's what the government wants, everyone to become stupid.
Yeah,
sadly, it's already
because your
a drug
purchase of
nation.
Vaseline Intensive Care Lotion supports the Vaseline Healing Project.
What that was. Hey,
It's
Joe,
not
it's not
Joe,
me.
we're running commercials now. Just a word from our sponsors.
I mean, that is a good question, Christopher. Where do the guns come from?
Mm-hmm.
But to me, that's like secondary to the major issue of what is the government's position going to be going forward, regardless of who is elected. Let's say Clinton's elected in November. What's going to change as far as gun ownership? And again, I keep going back to the Constitution and the Bill of Rights, and the Second Amendment says this: a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed upon.
Yeah.
Now, we make laws stating that who can and cannot have guns. Now, here's where I'm going to disagree with Sue a little bit about as far as felons. Now, are you talking about felons that are just got out of jail, or anybody that has a felony record?
Well, like I said, I think that if you're a felon, you've broken the law. And obviously a felony isn't a minor infraction. I think that it's reasonable to say that a felon shouldn't have a gun. Especially if you might have used a gun to do an armed robbery or something like that. Like, sorry, you shouldn't have a gun.
All right. Well, see, this is what's great about this format is where we can disagree. I mean, I think someone who has committed a felony and has done their time is now a free citizen again with no restrictions, according to the Constitution. Now, this may be where the progressives get involved and talk about the Constitution not meaning what it says it has to change. It is constantly changing and evolving. I think that if someone has committed a crime, and I admit that I'm probably on the extreme as far as the right to bear arms. I don't own a firearm. But as far as, and, you know, we can talk about people with mental histories. If we start putting provisos on who can own a gun, if someone gets out of jail and they're still on parole or probation, no, then you can't. You have to serve. Probation and parole is part of that sentence. But once you finish that sentence, you can vote again, you can drive again, you can do everything, but you can't own a gun. I don't believe that
I disagree. I think when you broke the law and you committed armed robbery or something with a firearm, you gave up your rights, number one. And number two, as far as I get what you're saying about people with mental illness. It's too easy than just to label people as mental. But I think there can be guidelines. And I know that there's been people, you know, that I know even in my own family, and I'm sure almost every one of us know of somebody who's really seriously mentally ill. And I'm sorry, they should never own a gun. And now, you can't just label them. Maybe there has to be guidelines. If they've had 3 instances of being 302'd, you know what I mean? Or whatever the evidence is, there has to be evidence for it. You can't just deem a person mentally ill, you know, over something minor or whatever. But there are some really, really seriously mentally ill people that should not be going around with a gun. Come on.
Well, in that case, unless they've made a threat against someone, unless a threat can be substantiated, then they shouldn't be able to own a gun. If they have a history of threatening people within this perceived mental illness, then that is an issue that needs to be addressed. They should not be able to purchase a firearm. But if you just label someone as mentally deficient, then I don't see how you can infringe on their constitutional right.
Because, like I said, if you have somebody who's very well known, has a mental illness, has been institutionalized for it, is going around talking to themselves, is showing signs of paranoia or schizophrenia or any of that stuff, they should not own a firearm. Come on, this isn't, that's just common sense. You're not going to, whether that person threatened the person's life or not, you don't put a gun into the hand of somebody like that. Like I said, there's got to be guidelines. There's got to be something that, besides just somebody accusing, that's just like people, people get divorced and then all of a sudden just to win the kids or whatever, they're accusing their spouses or their exes of child abuse or something, and then child, the CCIS or whatever comes in and investigates or whatever. Like, you can't just make blanket statements. I mean, there's got to be evidence, but like I said, especially if people have been institutionalized, they're homeless, they're living out on the street, they won't even come in, they're talking to themselves, like I said, showing signs of paranoia, schizophrenia, all that kind of stuff. No, absolutely.
If a professional believes that they are a danger to themselves or someone else, then I agree.
Exactly.
Someone walking around talking to themselves isn't someone necessarily who's a danger to themselves or someone else. This is the fuzziness.
I still would not want to see that person have a gun. Obviously, something's wrong. We all talk to ourselves, whether it's in our heads, out loud, or whatever. Like you said, that doesn't make you insane. But, I mean, if you go around, like talking to people that aren't there and, not just doing reasoning amongst yourself, but, come on. Something's wrong.
I think liberals see that the actions of a few mean that you have to bar everyone else of their rights, even though they're responsible. You can't do that. Just because somebody is crazy doesn't mean you have to ban rights on the normal people that just want to have a right. I think that's also something. And that's a fine line. That's a fine line. How do you regulate that? How do you know if somebody is mentally ill? Well, because they were registered in a mental clinic. A lot of mentally ill people never go to a mental clinic. So you have to rely on people, and it's tough. There's always going to be issues. There's always going to be accidents. But as an American, we have the right as an American, and we will suffer the consequences with a couple of crazies who commit. And half the time, it's not even real what happens. So I think it's just a political agenda. It's a talking point that is trying to derail us from the more important issues.
Definitely. But I think that, and from somebody who speaks from experience, most people with mental illnesses, they do end up getting institutionalized, whether they put themselves in somewhere, or because there are people that they realize it themselves, and they go and they commit themselves, whether they put themselves in there or they get 302'd, which is basically they get put in against their will because they are a threat and a danger to either society or themselves, so they end up getting 302'd. The problem is it's not that they never get institutionalized, because what you'll find is that it's a pattern. What's happening is they go in and out, in and out. They go in and they don't really help them, or they only keep them for a couple of days and they let them out, because nobody knows what to really do with these people. So they just let them out. And even the families are it's out of their control. They don't really know what to do. And so the families just try and do their best to help people, to help their loved one. But, it's out of their hands. They're out of their control on what they can do to control somebody. And that's why in a lot of these instances, you'll find that even the families, like before somebody does go off and does something crazy, a lot of times the families were pleading for help, where they kept saying, this is he or she has a problem. Nobody's helping us.
All right, let's move on. Joe, I'd like to hit two more points here before we wrap up. The first one is integrity, and this is involving the candidate for the Democrats, Hillary Clinton, her lack of integrity. And I just want to play a short clip here, and then we'll get into this subject real quick, and then I'd like to wrap up with the conspiracy theorist angle regarding Trump supporters. So this is going back to shortly after the attack on Benghazi. Yeah, this is if I could describe what's going on here. There are coffins of fallen from Benghazi that are being escorted into a hall. And right after this is going to be the address by both Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton. And so I just want to...
They're both lied. Do we really have to listen to the whole video of them lying?
Well, it's only...
This has been a difficult week for the State Department and for our country. We've seen the heavy assault on our post in Benghazi that took the lives of those brave men. We've seen rage and violence directed at American embassies over an awful internet video that we had nothing to do with. It is hard for the American people to make sense of that because it is senseless and it is totally unacceptable. The people of Egypt, Libya, Yemen, and Tunisia did not trade the tyranny of a dictator for the tyranny of a mob. Reasonable people and responsible leaders in these countries need to do everything they can to restore security and hold accountable those behind these violent acts.
To you, their families and colleagues, to all Americans, know this: their sacrifice will never be forgotten. We will bring to justice those who took them from us. We will stand fast against the violence on our diplomatic missions. We will continue to do everything in our power to protect Americans serving overseas, whether that means increasing security at our diplomatic posts, working with host countries which have an obligation to provide security, and making it clear that justice will come to those who harm Americans. Most of all, even in our grief, we will be resolute. For we are Americans, and we hold our head high, knowing that because of these patriots, because of you, this country that we love will always shine as a light unto the world.
Okay. And the video ends with the placing of the caskets into vehicles. Now, I want to first touch on the first part of Hillary's address there, and this is the day after the attack, and she comes out and attributes what happened in Benghazi to those men who lost their lives, and she attributes it to a YouTube video that caused unrest in the countries surrounding Libya in the Middle East. And the sad thing is that when the Select Committee on Benghazi did their investigation, which incidentally revealed Hillary Clinton's private server, but apart from that, when they did their investigation, they found that Hillary had given a email the day of the attack and had attributed it to a terrorist group, and also had emailed her daughter, Chelsea, and had attributed the attack to a terrorist group. Now, here's where I want to get into her integrity. She lies to the families of the victims in Benghazi by telling them that it's from a video. Then she goes on national TV and lies to the American people that it was because of a YouTube video, all along knowing that this was an attack perpetrated by terrorists, which incidentally they were arming. So, doesn't this disqualify her, guys, from being president of the United States? Do we want a president who lies to our face and then knows something else behind it? Like she said, there's the public Hillary and then there's the private Hillary. So doesn't this speak to her lack of integrity?
Well, of course it does, Bill. I mean, you have to own your responsibilities when you're the Secretary of State. You have to own the things that happen on your watch. And what I've heard from her time and time again is the blame game. It is deflection. It is dishonesty when she's talking about she didn't know what the C meant on her private email server. You know, this is something that she's never fully answered for. And frankly, people are aware of the term Benghazi and they have some sort of a fuzzy picture of what happened there. And the movie that came out, 13 Hours, you guys watched, I got to see that yet. But, if she can't be held accountable for this, what will she be held accountable for?
Mm-hmm.
Does it speak to her integrity? Of course it speaks to her integrity. Now, as I was talking about earlier in the program, politicians want to perpetuate their careers. If Hillary Clinton had come out and owned up the responsibility, hey, what would the consequences been have been at that time? Would she have been tried for crimes? Probably.
Mm-hmm.
So this is what politics is all about. This is deflecting and moving on with your personal career, which in less than 2 weeks may be the presidency of the United States. So it seems that everything has escaped her, from her time in Arkansas with Bill Clinton as the governor, all the way up through the Secretary of State, and in the Senate, and now as a presidential candidate. You said it in one of your texts, Bill. She's one of the Teflon Dons of politics. And now we have today. I don't think we addressed this, that the FBI is reopening an investigation into her emails as a result of investigating this pervert, Anthony Weiner, who was married to her top aide, Juma Abedin, and they discovered other emails between this Abedin and Hillary Clinton. So there's a new investigation, FBI investigation into her emails. So who knows where this is going to go? But I mean, where does this end? I mean, isn't this enough to cast a shadow of doubt on Hillary Clinton? I don't think it is.
Exactly.
I think people overlook
She
this
shouldn't
stuff.
even have been able to run. Anybody who's under FBI investigation, and not only that, but breaks the law, that for everybody to see that she clearly deleted the emails after having a subpoena. Like I said, that's obstruction of justice. She shouldn't even been allowed to run. So bottom line. But I'd like to let Chris, chime in on whatever he has to say about it. And then as far as what Benghazi goes, I'd like to wrap it up on the subject by reading something briefly about what really happened in Benghazi.
Okay, cool. Chris?
Yes, integrity. Zero integrity. If you look at the recent videos that came out, the Clinton campaign hired people to disturb Trump rallies and to make an image of bigotry. They hired people who were Donald Ducks in Donald Duck costumes to cause mayhem. So the media covered that. It was in Chicago. Where's the integrity? But we also have to realize that politics has no integrity. Trump also has said things that has no integrity. But that's the name of the game, and that's the way it's become. But Hillary Clinton, you got to remember, Trump has never held public office, ever. He was an American citizen who was living the American dream. He took advantage of the system, which we all try to do in some way or another, and he did it legally. If he did it illegally, then he would be in jail. So that's why the tax thing is totally irrelevant. It's not a matter of integrity. It's a matter of, getting the benefit of the doubt because you use the laws in your favor. But Benghazi was absolutely horrible. And Mitt Romney totally failed in 2012 to bring that up. Because I know last week you guys were talking about Benghazi. Benghazi happened September 11th, 2012. Four people died. Christopher Stevens, U.S. ambassador, and Romney failed to bring it up. And this is why Trump is different. Because Romney is part of Hillary Clinton, in my opinion. I think they're all the same. They're all the same people that say they want to change, but they don't want to change. They don't want to change anything. But Trump has came in, he's called out Hillary Clinton on her integrity and her lies, and he's bringing a new message that resonates. Michael Moore said it, with the working class that has felt abandoned. And Hillary doesn't care about them because they're votes. You think Hillary Clinton cares about the inner cities? She doesn't care about the inner cities at all, because guess what? She's been here 30 years and she hasn't done anything. So back to integrity, I don't think she has that much integrity. Look at her past. Benghazi, blaming everything on a video. It wasn't a video. They asked you to bring backup and you were sleeping, basically. And I agree with all you guys that there are major flaws and major ethical and moral issues that she holds.
Great ones, of course.
Absolutely. Like I said, like Joe touched on about, she has to take responsibility as head of state. We're supposed to believe that she's going to keep all countries safe when she couldn't keep one embassy safe. And that was her job.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that was her job. And about taking responsibility, what about the over $600 million that's unaccounted for of taxpayer money? That's a lot of money. That's our money. Where did it go? Where did it go, Hillary? Because she knows. And like I said, there's just certain things like that that's unacceptable. The fact that she sat there and just lied, blatantly lied, like you said, Bill, she knew it wasn't over a YouTube video. She perpetuated that lie. Obama perpetuated that lie in front of the UN. They continued that lie, and now today they act like, oh, they didn't know what happened right away, and that's why they thought, no, they knew right away. They knew from day one. And that's why it shouldn't take me long. It's something very brief that I'd like to read of what's actually going around Facebook as to what really happened in Benghazi. And it says, the real story is that Ambassador Stevens was sent to Benghazi post-haste in order to retrieve U.S.-made Stinger missiles supplied to Ansar al-Shari without congressional oversight or permission. Hillary brokered the deal through Stevens and a private arms dealer named Mark Perry. Then some of the soldier-filed missiles ended up in Afghanistan, used against our own military. It was on July 25th, 2012, when a Chinook helicopter was taken down by one of our own Stingers. But the idiot Taliban didn't arm the missile, and the Chinook didn't explode but had to land anyway. An ordnance team recovered the serial number of the missile, which led back to a cache of Stingers being held in Qatar by the CIA. Obama and Hillary were now in full panic mode, and Stevens was sent in to retrieve the rest of the Stingers. This was a do-or-die mission, which explains the stand-down orders given to multiple commando teams. It was the State Department, not the CIA, that supplied them to our sworn enemies, because Petraeus would not supply these deadly weapons due to their potential use on commercial aircraft. Obama threw General Petraeus under the bus after he refused to testify that he okayed that BS talking point about a spontaneous uprising due to a YouTube video. Obama and Hillary committed treason. And this is what the investigation is all about. Why she had a private server in order to delete the digital evidence, and why Obama, 2 weeks after the attack, told the UN that the attack was because of a YouTube video, even though everyone knew it was not. Further, the Taliban knew that the administration aided and abetted the enemy without congressional approval. When Boehner created the Select Committee and the Taliban began pushing the Obama administration for the release of 5 Taliban generals. So Bergville was just a pawn. Everyone knew he was a traitor. So we have a traitor as a POTUS that is not only corrupt but compromised, and a woman that is a serial liar, perjures herself multiple times at the hearing, who now is running for POTUS herself. Only the Democrats, with their hands out and palms up, will support her. Perhaps this is why no military aircraft was called in, because the administration knew our enemies had Stingers to take them down.
Wow.
And even Bernie Sanders, what did he say? Hillary has bad judgment. He said she is part of Wall Street. And that's why the CEO of Goldman Sachs last week endorsed her because she has money tied up with them, with a whole bunch of organizations and lobbyists. And guess what? She's not going to get anything done. She's not going to change squat because she is in debt to all of these donors and all these lobbyists that control her agenda. And they don't want to change anything because then they will be harmed by it. And Trump has said, guess what? Hedge fund people will not like me anymore. They will not like me because I know what they do. I know their schemes. And guess what? I took advantage of the tax code. I didn't pay any taxes. That's going to change when I'm in office.
Well,
I know how it works.
He didn't pay any taxes, though. He paid plenty of taxes. The point is,
income taxes.
Everybody takes I know I take all the maximum deductions I can. I try to pay the least possible taxes I can, just like everybody else. That's all he did. He didn't do anything different than any American. So for any American, any single one of them, to try and point a finger at Trump, they're a hypocrite because they all do the same thing. We all try and take all the deductions that we can so that we pay the least taxes possible. And actually, many Americans lie about those deductions.
Including George Soros, and Warren Buffett, who have used these laws in their advantage numerously, and yet they're supporting Hillary Clinton.
Mm-hmm.
Just saying that. Hypocritical.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have to ask you guys, Hillary Clinton, with all of this baggage, how did she become the Democratic nominee?
Well, number one, she's a woman. So the first black guy. Everybody knew they were going to press the first woman.
Yeah, but Elizabeth Warren.
That was like watching a movie when you can predict what the next scene's going to do. You know.
Well, my point is, she has all of this baggage, and whether you believe the accusations or not, whether you take a look at the evidence and you disregard it, or whatever the case may be, my point with Trump is, in supporting him, is that he, as we said earlier, is an outside. The baggage that he has, look, everybody brings baggage into an election. When you go into an election, whether it's on the local level, or the state level, or the federal level, your opponent is going to dig up whatever they can on you. Trump has some baggage. He doesn't have any political baggage. He hasn't been accountable to the taxpayers. Hillary Clinton has a history of being accountable to the taxpayers, and she's so far skirted that. She's led a charmed life, Hillary Clinton. So in summing all this up is really, and it comes down to why I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote. I've heard enough from Trump, aside from all the sideshow stuff that the media focuses on, and I know that it's tabloid journalism. It's not real journalism.
Yep.
It's entertainment.
It is.
The things that I've heard him say, I agree with. There's some things that I disagree with, but core issues, I agree with. Now, I've been able to observe the Clintons all of their lives, and I disagree with their policies. Now, that's why I'm going to vote the way I'm going to vote. For those who are going to these Hillary rallies, obviously, I guess they're disregarding all of these issues that we're talking about, and it doesn't mean anything to them. It's just, like Sue said, I mean, Phil, you asked this question a couple shows ago. Do people vote for the party, or do they vote for the person? Yeah. And I think that you're right, Sue, that although Elizabeth Warren was running, but certainly Clinton is a bigger name than Elizabeth Warren. I don't know anybody who knew who Elizabeth Warren was before she was a potential candidate. But yeah, she's going to be, and I've said this all along, I believe that she's been chosen, and we're not going to get into why I believe that. And maybe at some future point we will, but she's going to be the first female president of the United States, and I've seen it on TV. I've seen people interviewed. Do you ladies want the first woman to be? Yeah, I don't care who. Seriously, guys, I don't care who who is in there. It could be, as long as you're 35 and you're natural born, I don't care if you're a woman or a man. All I want you to do is when you, and you shouldn't do this again, swear to uphold the Constitution of the United States, that you actually do it.
Yep.
I'd like to just piggyback what you said. You said the reasons why you want to vote for Trump. Real quickly, I'd like to list the reasons why I want to vote for Trump. Number one, he wants to secure our country's borders and build a wall, which is desperately needed. He wants to restore law and order, destroy radical Islam terrorism, appoint conservative Supreme Court judges, lower taxes on the middle class, replace and repeal Obamacare, which is a disaster. The premiums are going up, which are unaffordable, and it's nothing more than another tax. Negotiate fair trade deals, bring back jobs to America from overseas, rebuild the American infrastructure, provide safe zones for refugees outside of the U.S., make America energy independent, get rid of political correctness, protect the Second Amendment. He's pro-life, especially for late-term abortions. He doesn't agree with it. Put Americans first, bring education back to the states, and none of this stupid Common Core nonsense. Take care of American veterans, repeal the Johnson Amendment, preserve Social Security, and balance the federal budget. I think that's everything I support. There's not one thing that I can say, or how I can even fathom how any American can be against any one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'll tell you what, if he gets in, he's the president, and he starts to go off track, I don't care. I'll be all over him like a cheap suit.
Mm-hmm.
I am no respecter of a person. You better do what you said you're going to do. And again, the president has to answer to Congress. So he's not going to be able to do these things all by himself. He's going to need the help of Congress.
Right.
But he's, in my mind, he has said the things that I've wanted to hear a politician say for a long time. Somebody running for office. He is not a cookie cutter politician. And again, to me, it's a very simple thing. If you want to continue government as is, you don't want to see real change, not just talked about, then go ahead and vote for Hillary Clinton. But if you want to take a chance and check out, the things that Sue was just talking about, then consider it. If not, then then don't bellyache when nothing changes and only actually gets worse.
I agree. All right, Joe. You want to tackle this last point? We're a little bit.
Yeah, you know what, Bill? Let's pick that up. If you guys can handle a fourth program, I'll tell you, to get into this is going to require a little bit of energy, because this conspiracy theory angle, as portrayed by the mainstream media, with regards to Trump supporters, is so incredibly fascinating. Every week I hear a different area that is attributed to conspiracy theories. For instance, last night, I heard those who question the economy and who are concerned about the economy for going forward are conspiracy theorists. Now, somebody explain that to me. So this to me, this is not something to be taken lightly, and this all goes to the internet. Thing is that I've heard people on the mainstream media talk about those who look for information on the internet. In my mind, it all gets back to listen to us because we're on the television and we are bringing you official information, and your default position, should be instinctively to believe what we tell you without questioning. Now, they've taken people who question things that don't make sense to them, and they've applied the conspiracy theorist label because you don't believe wholeheartedly the whole official story of any given event. So this is something that I want to start off, if you guys can do it next Friday, that would be great. I don't know is anything going on next Friday? I have no clue.
We'd have to do it on like a Wednesday because this Wednesday, because we're going to be in Florida on Friday.
Okay. Well, if you guys can do it, I can do it. I mean, I have everything ready. I just don't have the energy right now to get into it, to be honest with you.
Mm.
All right, sounds good.
I mean, I understand if you don't have the energy. The only thing I really wanted to touch base on, because we could talk about conspiracy theorists, and I mean, we could be here all night. But one of the main things I noticed that they keep reporting, and they keep calling Trump a conspiracy theorist. Yeah. And that he supports conspiracy theorists. And I think that they mainly say that because of one or two things, and that's number one, climate control, and global warming. Yeah. And because he comes out and says the election is rigged. They're bringing out these false witnesses against me. I don't even know these women. You know what I mean? So besides those like three things, that's what they're really preluding to when they accuse Trump of that. And then of course Trump supporters are also conspiracy theorists. So, but like I said, I mean, if you don't feel like you have the energy to go into the climate control thing, that's fine. We can see that. But we would have to, like I said, probably do it like Wednesday night.
If you guys can do it Wednesday night, that's great. I mean, I'll be here.
I'll be here if you guys want me again.
Oh,
absolutely.
Absolutely. You did a great job, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm telling you, it's encouraging to hear somebody of your age to even talk like that and be able to think for yourself and, and not just...
I just feel I'm always on the defense. Everywhere I go, I'm on the defense. There's a part of me that says, I wish I was with everyone's opinion, because then nobody would attack me. Yeah. But I get attacked all the time. There's people who don't talk to me.
Right.
But hey, it's something you got to live with. You got to stand by your convictions. You can't let anyone put you down. And you have to be strong, and you got to make a difference. And that's what you guys are doing. And I've been listening for a while, and I respect your convictions. Maybe I don't agree with everything, but that's irrelevant. It's a matter of listening and taking out what's important and not believing things that aren't true. In terms of, you got to listen to everyone's opinion and form your own. So I thank you for giving your opinion.
Oh, definitely. You're welcome. And like I said, it's encouraging to hear you because a lot of kids your age, or young adults, you're not a kid, obviously, a lot of young adults your age, they're just, like you said, they're brainwashed, and all they really do is spout out these, blurbs that they hear on the liberal media or from their liberal professors or whatever, and all they do is they spew out and regurgitate these lies and this rhetoric, and they act as though they had an original thought. You know what I mean? Like, they act as though they're coming up with like original thoughts, and that they're intelligent. When really all they are is brainwashed, and they're just spewing out the same garbage that they really been brainwashed from, whether it be from their liberal parents or the liberal media or their liberal college professors. All they're doing is spewing out their viewpoints.
And I just want to say one thing. I know we're almost done, but everything that Trump has proposed is legitimate. It's the way he says it, and the way he says it turns them off. Yeah. Because that's what most of them say. Why should I pay for illegal immigrants? Why should I pay for refugees when our inner cities are crumbling? It's the problem is how he says it. But the thing is the way he says it relates to the blue-collar worker. And that's what Michael Moore said. I don't know if you heard what Michael Moore said. He's a crazy liberal. But he explained it perfectly. People are angry. They're angry that the government has taken advantage of them. So Trump...
I heard everything he said, and I thought it was funny. I thought it was hilarious that he basically said that, Americans, especially middle America, one thing you can't take away from them is their vote. And when they all plan on going in there and voting for Trump, and it's going to be the biggest FU to the establishment ever. It's going to be the landslide and go down in history as the biggest FU to the corrupt establishment.
And that's what it comes down to, because everyone is so fed up. They just want to say "F you" to the establishment. That's what it comes down to.
Exactly.
I want smaller government, folks. That's what I want.
Yep.
I want government constitutionally controlled. I want the government out of my business. I don't care about Donald Trump's. I don't care about Donald Trump's taxes. I care about my own taxes. I care about the fact that we shouldn't have an IRS who infiltrates our lives. I shouldn't have to be accountable to the IRS. I shouldn't have to tell them how many miles I drive to work, what tools that I buy, where I'm working. It's none of their business. You know, let's simplify the tax system. Let's get the IRS out of our personal lives and start having repeal the 16th Amendment. That's number one, that they shouldn't be able to tax our wages.
Right.
That we all pay equally when we have a consumption tax. Let's start, like I said, let's reboot. Okay? I don't want to fill out any more forms. When I go buy something, I'll pay my taxes then. It's exactly what Trump is doing. He does pay taxes. Every time he buys something, he pays taxes. It's just that the wage tax that he is able to take advantage of the tax system and pay nothing, if that's the actual case. So these are the issues that really keep me. We could go on forever with these issues, and we haven't even gotten to some of the other issues that are so crucial that really neither candidate is addressing. So this is a look, and this is a conversation that we're going to continue afterwards, after the election. We're all going to come back and we're going to take a look at what happened, and we're going to give our opinions. We're going to give our thoughts as to what people are saying, and this is not something where everything's going to end on November 8th and November 9th. This is something that's going to bear watching. The first 100 days of whoever gets in there. I think it's going to be Hillary Clinton, but if it's Donald Trump, I'm going to watch him just as closely.
Yep. Well, we want to thank everyone for tuning in tonight to Answers for the Paranormal. And I want to thank all of my co-hosts tonight. Joe, thank you. Chris, thank you. And Susan, thank you. And it was a really great show tonight. Some great topics that we covered and some great opinions. And Chris, I want to again thank you and invite you back with us next Wednesday night. We'll get together again and talk about Part 4 of Selection 2016. And just to give out our website, www.answersfortheparanormal.org. We are a Christian-based ministry who looks into everything paranormal, whether it be ghosts or aliens or cryptozoological creatures, whatever it might be. If it's of the supernatural, we're covering it. So go to our website, check us out. Our email addresses are there on our contact page, Joe at answersfortheparanormal.org and William at answersfortheparanormal.org. Shoot us off an email. Let us know what you think after listening to our shows, and we'd be happy to enter into dialogue with you. So again, guys, I want to thank you all for coming on tonight. It's been a great time.
God bless everybody.
Good night. Good night, everybody.
Thank you very much once again. Take care, everybody.
Yeah, you too. All right, thank you. And we'll catch you all again next Wednesday on Answers for the Paranormal. Thanks for tuning in.
God bless. Bye-bye.
God bless.